Hey guys, this is Doran, CEO of Culture Matters. Today I'm going to talk about ego versus instinct. What really is ego and how does instinct have anything to do with the two? So let's talk about it. Ego. How many people know a guy that's outwardly confident to the point that it almost sickens you? We all do. Sometimes I could come across that way. That's why we're having this discussion today. So think about the person that's bragging, the braggadocious character. Yes, no one likes them. We don't want to be around them. It's really no time and place for them. But the point I want to make today is that the ego is not necessarily someone that thinks so highly of themselves. Living through the ego is someone that's unconsciously living through the most reptilian part of their brain. Millions of years of evolution, instinct, fight, flight, or freeze. So ego is instinct. Great example. We're going to go clothing shopping. You're in a rush. It's the holidays. You're not really sure. You know kind of what you want, but you're not really sure where it would be in the store or what size you need. You got not a lot of time, so you got to get in there quick. You're walking through the door. As soon as you walk right in, the associate comes up to you and says, "Hey, do you need help?" And right away, without even thinking, you say no. Now, logically, you knew that you needed help. You knew you didn't know where you're going. You knew you were in a rush. So logically, it would have been pretty good to say yes. But why did we say no? If you can relate to this, we're in the same boat because I've done this before as well. My point with this is that is living through our ego. It is living through our reptilian instinct. Reptilian instinct. Fight, flight, or freeze. Now I have gotten into this in the past when I talk about selling. In my book, Sell with Your Brain, Not Your Ego, the premise is it's not selling, it's communication. And based on how that associate communicated to you, they would have been able to manipulate your ego to get you to listen and actually follow that, which we've talked about, and you can check those videos out on my YouTube channel. But back to this. Ego is the reptilian instinct, fight, flight, or freeze. Now, you hear the term arrogant, humble. Someone that's humble is someone that doesn't brag about how great they are. Someone that's arrogant does, and they have a big ego. But what I would propose is most people are outwardly humble, meaning they'll tell you how humble they are, but they don't have an ego, but their actions say differently. They're outwardly humble, but introvertedly arrogant. What does that mean? You ask them, hey, they say to you, your friend Joe says, hey, yeah, Jay, I'm a humble guy. I don't like to brag about what I've done. Oh, yeah, that's great, Joe. When's the last time you read a book? Oh, I don't need to read. You're humble. See, words weigh ounces, actions weigh tons. Someone that's humble does what? Someone that's humble, truly humble, has actions oriented to understand that they don't know everything. Like Socrates says, the more I know is the more I know I don't know. So most people are outwardly humble, but introvertedly arrogant. So they keep making the same mistakes over and over and over, but their ego, their real ego, which is their instincts, they'll fight you about it. They'll want to change the conversation about why they're not reading, or they will not have an answer. Now, the greatest of the greats, Michael Jordan, for an example, someone that used to brag about how amazing he was. On the court, he seemed as though he was arrogant. Outwardly arrogant, but wasn't he the guy practicing harder than anybody? Repetition is the mother of skill. He was the guy that when his coach told him to do something, he listened and he took it to heart. So I would say he was outwardly arrogant, but introvertedly humble. Now, what does this have to do with ego's instinct? Because ego is not coming across as arrogant. That has more to do with the people that think you're coming across as arrogant as it has to do with you. What does that mean? Someone of a lower level of consciousness, meaning a reptilian consciousness, or some would call it a lower EQ, lower emotional intelligence, is living through their instinct, and you coming out and being confident and knowing yourself and proclaiming that to the universe, positive affirmation, just like Jordan, Conor McGregor is a great example, Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, all the greats in whatever fields they're in. You could look at sports, you could look at business. They are outwardly arrogant, outwardly boastful, outwardly confident, but introvertedly humble. Their actions were they woke up before and they went to bed later. They did what it took to be that great. So they earned that right. And only those who will not do what's necessary are the true arrogant, the outwardly humble, and the introvertedly arrogant. Because we must look at their actions, not the words that they preach. So most people are living through the reptilian brain. Fight, flight, or freeze. So when they walk into that store and they need to buy something at the clothing store and they're in a rush, they logically need help. The woman comes up to them and says, "Do you need help?" They say no. They say no because instinctually they don't know her. And logic comes from a higher level of consciousness. Not the limbic, which we'll get into, that's emotion, but the neocortex, or the frontal lobe. That's our logic. This is the highest level of consciousness. If we were going to look at 3 levels of consciousness, we would look at level 1, where 99% of people live. Here's where the chimpanzees are. Social. And here's where humans have been gifted by the grand design of the universe, whatever your creed or your belief. We're the only proven organism on the planet that we know of that has the ability to think in the future. That all comes from this part of our brain, our logic. So the question is, how do we start living through our logic? Because if most people walk into that store, me being included, in the past when I didn't know what I didn't know, living through a lower level of emotional intelligence, knowing logically I need help, but the person asks me, "Hey, do you need help?" and I'm saying no, how do we grow out of that? How do we become a higher level of conscious being? The answer is self-development. The answer is growth. They usually say, "Show me your friends, I'll show you your future." Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. So who are you hanging out with? Are they growth-minded or fixed mindset? Readers or leaders? It's a quote I'll never forget. The founding fathers, every one of them carried a book with them because they knew that they didn't know anything. And the more they knew they didn't know. So they're always reading. And what mentors do you have in your life? Who is where you want to be in 10 years that you're hanging out with? And what mentees can you share with? Because when you hear, you forget. When you see, you remember. But if you do, you understand. Meaning when you're learning and you're sharing, you'll never forget. Because we won't get what we want in life. We're going to get who we are or what we are. So most people are living through their ego, their reptilian brain, which is unconsciously making their decisions for them. And that proposes another philosophical question. What is free will? Well, I would argue someone that's living through their ego, which is most people in the world, and correlation to that, most have no money, because that's a reflection of their character and who they are and their consciousness. Most people don't have free will because they're the effect of their emotion and their instinct. They are effect on how they feel. They are effect of what their instincts tell them. And only those who are consciously aware of themselves, who they are, where they are in their space, are the people free enough, the 1%, to live through the logic that's been gifted to humans only. So the question is, where do you fall in this spectrum? Are you living through your ego? Are you outwardly humble but introvertedly arrogant? Do your actions speak louder than your words? Or are you outwardly arrogant because you know who you are in the universe, you know your purpose, you know why you're here, you know what drives you, and you're aware of where you are in your environment? Where do you fall on the spectrum? Instinct emotion or logic? Hope that helped, guys. Different perspective on ego versus instinct. This is Doran, CEO of Culture Matters. You can get more free information at yourunstoppableculture.com. Hope you guys have a great day.